ref. Actually got the ball. Good afternoon, Tottenham fans all across the world, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave. And I brought Sava in with me today for the Europa League draw. No, Jack, I told him to stay in bed. It's like 4 a.m. where he is, so there's no point in him getting out of bed for a Europa League draw. He can find out the good stuff when he gets out of bed. A lot going on today. Of course, we have the Europa League draw. I will be covering the Under-21 watch along tonight as well, with a deadline day stream later on this evening. So, big day. Sava, how are you? Are you enjoying your transfer deadline day? Nice and quiet?
Yeah. I'm on annual leave today, so I woke up leisurely, went and got a haircut. I've been watching Sky Sports News and keeping up to date with Romano, and I'm waiting for Eze, Tony, and Zubimendi to all come through the door today. So I'm good. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm keeping well. Like you, had Sky Sports on since 8 o'clock this morning, sitting there wishing and praying and hoping, something out of the blue would come out. And look, I've done the same last deadline day, every deadline day, to be honest. I should learn my lesson by now, but it does look like, with all intents and purposes, everybody is going to be a very quiet deadline day around Tottenham. I would hazard a guess, as soon as Postecoglou's press conference is out the way after the Europa League draw, I reckon Tottenham might show up shop for the day. To be brutally honest, what do you think on that one, Sava?
Yeah. Listen, you're gonna hate, your viewers will hate me for saying this, Dave. I shut up shop in terms of the moment they signed Timo Werner. I wrote this window off again, and I wasn't wrong. So, look, I'll tell you, as much as we know what's going to happen, Dave, I think the child in us, in all of us as fans, I see Arsenal in last day bids for players, and Chelsea are talking to Tony and Sancho, and I see that West Ham have just signed Carlos Soler, and I'm thinking, come on, Spurs, can we get a couple of loans in on the last day to help the squad? But listen, I don't know if you saw it. I actually saw Paul O'Keefe's tweet last night about the club and about poor planning and stuff. And I don't know, have you seen that?
No.
Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah. Read it out.
Yeah. I mean, Paul O'Keefe said this. He said they've neglected key areas. Those players are absolutely fine if they are complemented by a couple of proven, experienced players, and other areas aren't neglected. They've spent a year prepping for this window and are short again, despite all their flirting with dozens of players and clubs.
Well, it's an indictment, isn't it? Do you know what, though? I've been thinking about this last night, and I'm going to say it tonight. I think the Timo Werner signing really screwed up our window. The high wages that we brought him in on, left, we once Chiesa, Coleman, people like that have come on the market. We were never going to get them after paying Timo Werner's wages. And I think, that sort of set the precedent to a very underwhelming window. And considering we only really had 4 or 5 pieces of business we had to do, and if we'd done it correct, we could have put ourselves in a tighter race like Postecoglou wants. But I feel like we've messed this window up from the start all the way through. You look at the starting 11, have we made really any improvements to that? Some would say maybe Solanke, maybe Udebur, but again, we have to wait and see. It's not a given. And then we're still left short across the back line. If Van de Ven or Doji go injured, we're absolutely screwed. So I do think we've messed this window up for Ange Postecoglou, which is sad, to be brutally honest. However, we are here today to talk about the Europa League. The draw is about to take place, so we will get on to that. I just want to welcome a few people in, and then I'm going to bring up this graphic here. Basically, actually, I'll just give you a quick rundown, and then I'll welcome people in. So, obviously, we're operating in a league format rather than the usual group stage in Europa League. This time around, a total of 36 teams will be involved in the league phase. I think it's 26 or 28 teams can go through. So you'd have to be pretty shit not to get out of the group stage into the next round. Of course, we play 8 games instead of the usual 6 in the group stage. 8 opponents will be determined based on seeding in 4 pots, which we have on the screen here, which all contain 9 teams, with the club's coefficient at the start of the season being the deciding factor for the Europa League draw. Also, in the league phase, teams cannot face opponents from their own country and can be drawn against a maximum of 2 sides from the same nation. And then I think we'll get the draw today, and then the automated software will then randomly select 8 opponents across the 4 pots, deciding when we play home, when we play away. And I think that'll come at a later date. So that's everything you need to know heading into this draw. I think I've got my head wrapped around it. I think that's correct. We'll just welcome some people in and then we'll get into it. And I'll ask Sava, you know, what his ideal draw is and who he wants to avoid before the actual draw takes place. Big up, Brett. Great to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. Says, let's hope for a good draw. I'll be honest, I want an easy draw the whole way through. The Big D says, happy Friday, Dave and Jack in the chat. Nice to have European football back, even if it's not Tuesday or Wednesday nights. This is the one competition I'd love to win and believe we can. We might get a couple of games on Wednesdays with this new Europa League format, actually, the Big D. I think that's change. We might actually get a couple of games on Wednesdays, which would be good. Good to see Polly in the house. Finn Rickwood, big up David and Jack and everyone in chat. Good to see you, Finn. Liam, big up my man. Hopefully you're keeping well, along with Davey Hall. Great to see you as always. Berbatos Halftime Smoke, one of the greatest names on YouTube. Good to see you. It's Friday already. That is, and it's going to be a busy weekend as well for Tottenham. Queen Ellie Hoiberg, nice one, Dave. I'm here to hear the draw with you, lads. No better place to be. Come on, you Irish Hotspur Army. Big up, Ellie. Good to see you. Hopefully you and Theo are keeping well, and the daughters, by the way. Rohin says 2 Norwegian teams in the draw. Let's go. Yeah, shame we couldn't get any Ireland teams in there. Mick from Poland, hopefully you're keeping well. He says he got the ball. Yeah, that's on the Romero one against Chelsea when he got sent off last year. Berbatos Halftime Smoke has become a new YouTube member. Big up, my man. Really appreciate it. And welcome to the community. We do a lot of stuff extra for members. So make sure you get on that and check that out, Berbatov. Really appreciate that, my man. Then we also have Dark Sun G in here. Come on, you Spurs. Let's get a great draw for the Europa League. Dark Sun G, let me know what sort of draw you're looking for. You're looking for a mix? Do you want to go up against the top way? Or do you want an easy draw? Please let me know, Dark Sun G. But good to see you, and I know you're certainly excited for this draw. Big up, Cantab. Good to see you. As always, says big up, Sav and Dave. We've got Shem Tam in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well. Great to see you in the building. Future's bright. Future's lily white. As always, good to see you, sir. Thomas is in the house. Great to see you, Thomas. Hopefully you're keeping well. Then we've also got Bruce Tolhurst. Sorry, I should have read that before. But first of all, actually, I'm going to leave that there for 1 second because I want to say Sava is my guest today, and I would appreciate if everybody could show a little bit of respect. At the end of the day, he's entitled to his views, and on the transfer window, I don't stand too far away from Sava's views. And we might see some things a little bit differently, but in general, most people think the window is underwhelming and stuff like that. But I do ask for a little bit of respect, likewise. And I'm sure Sava's going to give it to you. He's not going to come after you in the comments and stuff like that. So if we can please just show each other a little bit of respect, that would be absolutely brilliant. Then we've got Bjorn Wendell in the house. Great to see you, sir. K32 as well. From sunny Limerick. It's sunny today. Yeah, it's not too bad up here in Kildare. Not a cloud in the sky. Ron V, great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Along with Inacoma, Shawnee Johnston. Great to see you. Big G. The Mo. Bring on the Rangers. I wouldn't mind Rangers, to be brutally honest. They're in a mess right now. Polly Cooper, great to see you as well. Hopefully you're keeping well. And then Andy English, Jack Burford as well. Great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Tune in from Thailand. And Ed M as well. As always, great to see you guys. Sava, we've got the pots up here. We can take 2 from each pot, my man. What draw would you be looking for today? And what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're looking at pot 1, we want to... Look, I'll just caveat this and say straight away, I think whatever 8 we get, we should go through to the final stages. I think there's enough teams there that will see us through. If we're gonna look at this on the cold front, you want to stay away from. We can't get Man U, right? Is that correct? We can't get Man U.
Yeah, we can't play any England teams.
So I guess from that part, you want to stay away from your Romas. You want to stay away from. I mean, Ajax isn't an easy game. Porto away isn't easy. Look, there's no one there that on our day we can't give a game to. So I'm not too concerned as to whoever we get. I think with anything, when these competitions come around, I think it starts to become interesting. It starts to become interesting, the other side of the groups. That's where it starts to become interesting, and you whittle it down to the best teams. But there shouldn't be anyone... look, Man United are probably I haven't seen the odds. I'm guessing Man U are one of the favourites to win it. We can't play them. That's a positive. You want to... I suppose you don't want trips that are too far away. Do you know what I mean? You don't want a horrible trip that's a horrible journey on a Thursday night at a pokey little stadium where the fans are all a bit raucous. But, mate, when you look at that Europa League... I don't think we should be too concerned at the group stage. Certainly, I don't think we should be at all.
Do you know what I was saying on that yesterday, Sav? I was saying for me, like I grew up in an era where we could put out some half of our under 21s combined with some squad players against the likes of Hearts, Rovers, teams like
Mm,
that we've met in years gone by, and we've gone and beat them 4 or 5-0. Down the
mm.
years, that's changed. We could barely beat a Pacos de Ferreira, losing to NS Mora, clubs like that, absolutely embarrassing. However, I do think it'll be a little bit different this year. We should see a lot of the squad can play the same way. They're technical, so we shouldn't see as much of a drop off if we're going to make rotations. However, I do want the easy teams because this is going to be lumped in and around the Premier League, the Carabao Cup, and in order to sustain it, I would like easy teams, but preferably closer to the eastern side of Europe rather than the western side of Europe. I don't really want to be traveling that far. For me, I would take Rangers all day long out of this pot. I'd absolutely love them. They're in absolute turmoil right now.
I agree.
No
I
new
agree.
signings, can't play at their home stadium, stuff like that. And Slavia Prague would be the other one I would want out of this. Lazio could be a very difficult away trip if we get them. Frankfurt, the same. Ajax, the same, although they're not in great shape right now. Porto, I would like to avoid. They're difficult to beat. And AS Roma returning against Jose Mourinho. Savi, you think we could beat him?
I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, listen, as I said, I don't think there's anyone there that we should be going into a game and going, they're going to batter us. I guess it all depends on, as you said, what 11 is he going to put out? What are we going to be like at the moment, at any given moment with injuries, suspensions? I think Mourinho coming to town would add a little bit of spice.
Yeah.
Love him, hate him. You need Mourinhos. You need these characters in football. So I think that would be any trick in the book would be used by Jose. So we'll see. And I'm going to be really interested to see how these teams assess Ange's tactics. We know how we play. We know that we give away a lot of opportunities. So it's going to be really interesting to see how many of these managers do their homework. And I would expect to win all the home games, no matter who we play. And the away games, I would expect that to be a mixture of winning, losing, and drawing. So, yeah, I'm all for it. Bring on Jose. I want to get Karabag. I just love that as a name. I think that's a brilliant
Kazakhstan,
name.
right?
Pass.
I think so. I think Kazakhstan.
I remember we played them before, didn't we? Many years back. Look, ideally, I don't really want to be going to Lyon on a Thursday night. I don't mind them at home. I don't really want to go to Lyon. Olympiacos, these sort of clubs, they've got that tension from the fans. They've got that cauldron. Real Sociedad, they're a good football team as well. Athletic Bilbao, they're a good team. So it's going to be interesting, Dave. But look, there's no one in there that you look at and you go, they are a million times better than us. So I'm depending on how this all depends on how seriously he takes the trophy. If he goes all kids, we're not going to go anywhere. If he goes for a mixture, it will depend who we play. If he goes for his first team, there's no reason we can't have a cup run deep into this tournament.
Do you know what? I think Postecoglou will take it seriously. I do think we will see a mixture of squads, depending on who we draw. If we draw some of the easier teams across Europe, I do think you will see some rotations, and I do think it will work out because the likes of, if you want to take out Madison and bring in a Bergvall, he should slot in there seamlessly enough to a large degree. Same if you wanted to, well, maybe a Pedro and Porro Spence is a little bit different, but Spence does offer stuff, and for me, I think we'll do well this year. I don't think they'll have the excuses of years gone by, because in years gone by, you had players that didn't really want to be out there. They thought they were too good to play a lot of these games. And all they were doing actually going out and the way they were performing these games was actually backing up the manager's point on why they were playing these sort of games. So hopefully we will see a lot of change in that this year. I would like to see it. In terms of pot 2, I would like Maccabi Tel Aviv just because Robbie Keane is manager there, and I would like to have a reunion there with Robbie Keane. He's actually done a good job there. Olympiacos, didn't they turn us over under Jose Mourinho? I think that's one or did we end up coming back? But I think Dyer got took off after like 30 minutes. Or Ferenc Varos is the other team that I wouldn't mind out of that pot too at all. Just quickly, Dark Sun G says, Dave, I think it's time to change the intro. That has Royal Perm and Hoiberg since they are no longer in our club. I want a mix of hard and easy draw. Look, we will be changing that intro. Don't worry about that, Dark Sun G. We're just waiting for the transfer window to close, and we'll get it on it over the international break. Mix of easy and hard. Interesting there from Dark Sun G. And then he also goes on to say, Sava, or he calls you Savvy, which is not a bad name either. How does it feel to have almost all of the Deadwood gone? How many times are Deadwood bottled it because they only cared about the national team? What would you... I know in terms of incomes, it's very underwhelming, but in terms of outgoing, Sal, a lot of the Deadwoods players that have lost to shit teams in the FA Cup, the League Cup, all across Europe, it is refreshing in a way to have them guys gone.
It is, but for me, I'll stand by this. It just doesn't mean anything if you're not replacing them. And I think it's great. We've been conditioned now to...
Just quickly, we've drawn Roma away as one of the first draws.
Yeah, I've got it here. I can see it. Yeah. By the way, my sound's off, so it's all a bit confusing. I'm just seeing lots of things being drawn. And I don't know how difficult UEFA can make these draws, but yeah, we've got Roma at home, right? So
oh yeah, sorry, Roma at home. Yeah, sorry, they're drawing, they were drawn away. So yeah, sorry, Roma at home. You're absolutely spot on.
We've got Roma at home. Yeah, mate, listen, look, it's great. All I'll say is this, Dave. All of the Deadwood that has been sold, most of the Deadwood wasn't even here last year. They were all out on loan. If we're going to talk about the Deadwood from the actual team that was here last year, it's only Højbjerg and Skip that have gone. If we're going to be brutally honest about it, it's only Højbjerg, Skip, and Solomon's gone on loan, but he didn't play all last season. So for me, yeah, it's great. But don't forget, Dave, and I've got the receipts. Don't forget, all of these players we're talking about, Deadwood, were players that 2-3 years ago, our fans were saying, give it time, they're going to come good. Now, 2-3 years later, we're classing them all as Deadwood and replacing them with kids. It's great. Get rid of them. But look, I'm not an accountant. I don't care about the age of the club, of the players. I don't care about the salary that we've saved. I want to know, are we bringing in top players once we've got rid of the Deadwood? And the answer was no. So great. That's brilliant. But I think he's left the squad too short. I don't think our squad's big enough, Dave. I think we're really short.
Look, I think we will be left short in certain areas. I think if we want to make rotations out wide, I think a lot of the season largely hinges on Son. But then an Udebert to come good, hit the ground running and give us a consistent season. When a Johnson or Werner comes in, that's where I do worry. And that's where I think teams could come back to haunt us. But people shouldn't be surprised because I've said this for quite some time with some of these guys. But in terms of outgoings, look, Højbjerg's gone, Emerson Royale's gone, Gill's gone, a lot of the players that we were sending out on loan over the years, which were slowing down our market because we were having to find ways to try and get rid of these players and stuff like that. Going forward, we no longer really have that problem, which means next summer we can just sort of hit the ground running. There shouldn't be any excuse from the board. We shouldn't see any articles about Tottenham have to sell before they can buy, because that problem will now be alleviated, which I think is a good thing in general moving forward. I was listening to Carragher the other day and they were talking to him about Liverpool, maybe not signing as many players this summer. And he did say one thing Liverpool will not do and haven't done over the last 5 to 10 years is they will not knee-jerk in the market. They will stick to their targets and they'll go after them. And he was saying bad recruitment can set you back 5-10 years. And I do believe that's true with Tottenham when you look at the recruitment that Steve Hitchen made. that set us back for quite some time. And it does finally feel like we are starting to come out of that era and pushing on into a new era where next season, next summer, we can just look, even January, look at the squad and go, right, what are we adding? Rather than we have to do this, we have to do that and stuff like that. And I think that is a positive.
Listen, I'll respectfully disagree with you because, again, the only reason being, Dave, is I'm an evidence person. Yeah. I need to see it. I keep hearing all this nice stuff, but I'm not seeing it. And this window was, listen, they've got rid of £32 million off the wages. We've got a smaller squad now. This was a real opportunity, Dave. A real opportunity to go and add 3 or 4 players to the first team. And we haven't. We've just bought kids. And that's fine. But the manager's telling us winning mentality. I want to win. The chairman's telling us we're running the club differently now and we can compete. But the actual actions in the transfer market aren't showing that. And Dave, it's like I said yesterday on my channel. If I'd shown anyone this summer window at the end of May, before the transfer window opened, and said, "Would you like this as a transfer window?" Not one of these players, not one of these fans would have said, "That's the window." Not one of them would have been happy with this.
We're out the pot. We're out the pot. So our draw is about to take place. But no, I do agree with you. We got Rangers. Is that no?
I'm so confused by this draw. I'll be honest. I haven't got the sound on.
Roma at home anyway. We've got Roma at home, but the rest of our draws should be coming up now. Rangers away, Alkmaar at home, Ferencvaros away, Karabag at home, Galatasaray away, Elfsberg at home, and Hoffenheim away. I would say that is a very, very kind draw to Tottenham Hotspur. I'll run through that one more time. Roma at home, Rangers away, which I wanted. AZ Alkmaar at home, Ferencvaros away, and now they've took it down off me. I'll go and get it up on Twitter. Absolute cretins they are. But that is the draw for Tottenham Hotspur. Just give me one moment in time. I will go and get it up for you right now, guys. But in terms of what you're saying, Sav, I do agree with you in terms of that. Like, this is something I've been saying all season, all summer, on streams that I've been on, is that when you look at Postecoglou's words, and then when you look at, the business we've done, it doesn't quite add up, right? And I do agree with you in that we are taking a huge gamble going into the season with the squad we are and the signings that we've made. My only hope, and this is where me and you probably differ a little bit, well, I know we differ here, Sav, is that I think Postecoglou is a good manager, and I think he will get get a lot out of what he's got. It's just I don't think it will put him into a title challenge like he's hoping for, and that is my concern.
No.
But I know you disagree with that. Oh, just
no,
quickly.
No, I agree with you. I was agreeing. The title challenge part. Oh, mate, we're going to be 25, 26 points off it. The question I'll ask Dave is this, and I know, as I said, I know a lot of people want to say negative, whatever, but I'm a facts person. I'm an evidence person. If people want to tell me things are changing, I have to see that it's changing. It can't just be done on hope. It needs to be done on, okay, Spurs want to do better than last year. Brilliant. So show me what we've done. But we've bought a lot of kids, which is fine. But then the club need to stop telling us that they want to change and want to win things. So, look, it's fine. I think we'll be roughly 5th, 6th, 7th, I think, in that mix. I just don't think we're going to do any better than last year because we haven't strengthened. And that's arguable. But when you buy a lot of kids with no experience, no one can turn around and say you strengthened. So it is what it is. It is what it is.
What I think we've done is, first of all, I've said this on yours. I think we're trying to build a team for when Guardiola leaves Man City, rather than commit the funds to build a team this season, to be able to do what it takes. And look, I think we might have done enough to get inside top 4. I do think some of the players that we've got coming in will be better than some of the players that we've had last year to step in. And my hope is that would put extra points on the board. We should sneak inside top 4. However, I don't think we'll get into a title race. And that's where maybe my concerns come in. And the reason why I say that is because I do think there's a lot of big clubs looking at Postecoglou right now, circling. And I think, if he doesn't win out in this season or next season, I think he'll get one of them jobs. I think they'll come calling. I think he will go. So for me, I thought it was really important to try and match Postecoglou's ambitions, because a lot of people have the opinion that Postecoglou's a rebuild manager. He's going to be patient. And I tried to tell everybody when we signed him, that is not the case with Postecoglou. He wants to go and win trophies. It doesn't matter what level he's at. He wants to win the trophies. He doesn't have time and patience for this rebuild. And when you look at him, he doesn't really stay around clubs, beyond really 2 years when you look at a lot of his managerial careers. So that's why I do think it was important for the board to match his ambition. And I just feel
that does contradict what he said, though, Dave. Doesn't it? It does contradict what he said. He's the one that said, I was chasing Solanke for the whole summer. I was chasing Odegaard. I wanted Gray. Look, this is where I think we disagree. I don't think he's a top manager in any way, shape, or form. I think he's an okay manager. I think had Postecoglou had gone to one of our if he had gone to Man U, to Villa, would everyone be saying the same thing? The Spurs fans now, would we be saying the same thing? I'm not sure. I don't know for sure, Dave, but I'm not sure we would. I like Ange. He seems like a really good guy. I just think that, look, it's Spurs. It's Spurs. If you're going to play this style of football that Ange wants to play, you've got to be bringing in better footballers than what we brought in. It's that simple for me. And again, Dave, you know me. I always say that, you know, and I know people can be rude and whatever, but I always caveat my opinions with, what do you want Spurs to be? If your answer as a fan, not saying yours is, but if your answer as a fan is, oh, look, I'm happy with Europa League, Conference League, finishing 5th, 6th, 7th, fine. Then what we're doing is great. If your answer is, I want to finally start closing the gap to the big clubs consistently, and I want a challenge for things, then we're not doing that. So I think as a fan, what do you want, right? Not, you know, I get when people want to come for me. I get it. I get it, right? Because it's not a popular opinion. But I had all this last year, Dave, when I was told all these things about me. And then what happened last year? I said 5th. I said we'd be 20-odd points away from it. We were. And because I used this and not this, and I know people want me to use this more, but using this doesn't actually tell the truth. So it is what it is. If I'm wrong at the end of the season, I'll hold my hands up, Dave. I'll come on here and go, Irish, you were correct. But I just don't think we've done enough.
You know what? You don't even need to do that, because, to be honest with you, I don't care that much. You know, at the end of the day, it's just our opinions. You know, I'm not going to sit there at the end of the season and go, you were completely wrong, you know, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's football. We all see it through different eyes, and, you know, we all have our own opinions on it. And that's what I like about YouTube, to be brutally honest. At least we can all sit here with different thoughts and speak about them. And look, you know, I think we agree that it's going to be tough for us to get into a title race and close the gap. I think we just maybe disagree on where we're going to finish this season. And look, I get it. There's a potential that we could do worse. West Ham have had a good market. Chelsea under Maresca, they could get it together, you know. Man United have had a decent enough transfer market. So I do get the point that there are teams coming up behind us that we do need to worry about, especially if they can pull it together. They're going to be a threat to us trying to get to top 4. So I definitely agree with that. Dark Song G says, lol, man, you got the Jose Derby. Hope they lose. We got Izzy Alkmaar, Troy Parrott Derby. Interesting yet with the return of Troy Parrott. I feel like we got a nice draw. Come on, you Spurs. Galatasaray away is tough. Look, going out to some of them teams in Turkey can be tough. The atmosphere will be tough as well. They're you know, it makes me laugh sometimes. The English media go on about, you know, the fans of the Premier League and stuff like that. I mean, they would absolutely capitulate if they had to go out to Turkey and start talking about their fans out there. It's a really different atmosphere completely. But this is the draw, Dark Sung G. I'm quite happy with it. I wanted a relatively easy draw with a lot of teams, because it's going to be difficult to maintain Europa League and Premier League side by side, and you do need some easy enough teams where you can afford to make rotations rather than having to put your best team out there every single week. And looking at that, I'll be brutally honest, I'll be surprised if we don't get out in the top 8. The top 8 automatically go through to the last 16, I think it is, or is it the quarterfinals, and then the rest come out into, I think it's the last 32, and we go into the last 16 or something like that, and then the rest go out into that. So I do think we should come out in that top 8 and avoid the 2 qualifiers in late January and early February. So that should be it.
You remember when it used to be
expect a run here, Sava? Huh?
Do you remember when these competitions used to be simple? It's mad, isn't it? Look, I
remember when the Champions League used to be 2 group stages before any knockouts.
Look, this is a good draw. It's the sort of draw where you look at and you say, come the end of those 8 games, is it the top 4 that go through?
After the 8, say that again.
Is it the top 4 from this 8? So hang on, it's one big league, isn't it?
It's one big league, right? I think it's 32 or 36 teams in the league. So the top 8 will, I think, avoid the last 30, the last 16, I think it is, and go straight into the quarters. And then the next 16 after the top 8 go through into the last 16 and battle it out for a place in the quarters.
Well, look, let's be brutally honest. There can't really be any excuses. I think most Spurs fans are going to sit and look at this 8 and go, all right, Roma, tricky game. However, I'd be more worried if we was playing in Rome, right? I'd be more worried about that. Rangers, as you said, listen, it won't be a walk in the park because it's still Rangers on a European night, but you should be winning that. Alkmaar, Karabag, and Elfsborg at home. No disrespect to those clubs, that should be wins. They really, really should be. But look, it's down to Spurs to go and do it. And this is where there can't be any excuses. There can't be, oh, well, we put out kids or we had injury. You've got to go and make the best of this group. And then we'll see who we get in the knockout stages, because that's going to be the real question, right? Is who do you get? For all we know, we get Man United, first knockout, two legs, and you get knocked out. Or you don't play anyone like that and you get all the way to the final. So it's all a bit of hit and hope. But look, I think we're all very happy with that, right? I think we're happy.
Honestly, I think you should reconsider your existence on planet Earth if you're not really too happy with this, to be brutally honest with you. I think it's best case scenario. Look, Roma, tough game, but I think getting that at home is a huge plus for us. Rangers away, Ange was former Celtic manager. There's going to be that bit of needle in it, but we've played Rangers a couple of times over the last few years in friendlies and whatnot. We should be beating them. AZ Alkmaar, I know Jack's going to be happy. He wanted these. Troy Parrott there. Ferencvaros, I mean, if we don't beat these, even if it's away from home, I might have to quit YouTube, to be brutally honest. They've only come to the floor of European football the last few years. So, making these sort of competitions would be embarrassing. Karabag, I'm glad we have avoided a trip out to Kazakhstan. We've got that one at home. That's a huge plus. Galatasaray is the only one I sort of look at where I'm like, look, that could become a difficult evening very quickly if we don't turn up with the right attitude. Elfsborg, I'm getting my trip to Sweden. I wanted one of them. We're bringing Kulusevski, we're bringing Bergvall home, which I'm absolutely delighted about, and hopefully do a little bit of scouting out there right now, because Scandinavia seems to be where the players are coming out right now. And then Hoffenheim as well. Another one could be a bit difficult, but look, for me, I'm not really worried. I think we'll come out top 8. We should go straight into the quarters. Agreed. After that, then, I'm happy. Let's see where we go from there. I just don't want to be embarrassed like we have in years gone by in certain games. I don't think we will this time around. But I'm really excited to get back in Europa League. And I know some people are going to say, Dave, it's a loser mentality. We want to be in the Champions League and that. I get it, right? We all want to. But
we're in what we're in. We're in what we're in, right?
And for me, I'm just glad to have any sort of European football back. I would have took Europa Conference League this year. I was sick to death watching English clubs perform in the Champions League and across Europe last year. And I'm sitting at home twiddling my thumbs thinking, will I go live and talk about Tottenham, or will I just sit back and try and enjoy the football? It was embarrassing last year, and it was a long season without it. I'm absolutely delighted to be back in Europe. Tottenham, all white, under the lights, the way it should be. And hopefully we can steamroll our way through the competition and get into the deep stages. I want my trip out to Bilbao, Sava.
Listen, I'm looking at that, and what's jumping out at me is 5 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat. The only reason I put a defeat in there is away games in Europe. You don't know who you've played the weekend before. You don't know with injuries. So look, I think if someone offered you 5 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat from those 8 games, I think you're gonna take that, right? Hoffenheim. Look, Hoffenheim. Sometimes when I've seen them, I think they've looked decent, beatable. Galatasaray, that's never going to be easy, Galatasaray. But look, I think that's a nice draw. But I'll ask you this: did anyone really wake up this morning and think, "Oh God, I don't see us getting to the knockout stages of this competition"? Right? I think we all pretty much knew we would. But this is a nice draw. I wanted Karabag, we got them. Ferencvaros. I actually watched a bit of Ferencvaros last night, and we should be beating them comfortably. But you never know. Listen, I'm fairly comfortable we'll have a deep run in this competition, depending on what Ange does personnel wise. Right? If what we can't be doing is getting to these games and playing 7 or 8 kids and then wondering why we've lost. So that's going to be really interesting to see how serious he takes it. My only concern, Dave, with this season, we've got 4 competitions. I'm just a little bit concerned at the depth in midfield and in defence. I'm just really, really concerned about that. And I said a couple of weeks ago when we signed, who was the last player we signed? Odebert, was it?
Odebert.
Well, I said to you, I think I actually said to you on one of our videos, I said, yeah, I've got no doubt we'll get a couple more in. I just question the quality.
Yeah.
And then as the weeks gone on, I'm like, come on, surely we're bringing in another defender. Surely we're going to get, and it just hasn't happened. So we're going to have to be very lucky with injuries. But when those injuries come, Dave, the difference between this year and last year, we can't turn around and say, oh, injuries ruined us. We haven't, it's almost like the club haven't factored injuries in.
Well, look, that excuse is no longer there this year. You know, considering it's a squad that the manager's happy with, you know, it's a squad that the board have put together to go and try and win trophies. That excuse ain't there this year. You know, people have signed off on these signings so that this excuse doesn't happen, so that they could fill out the squad. So you're right, that excuse isn't there this year. Absolutely spot on.
Look, I agree. I just see, like, you know, on this day, I saw, you know, West Ham of Carlos Sola. You know, so they've literally gone, okay, James Ward-Prowse is going to go. We're going to upgrade on him to Carlos Sola on a loan. And I'm thinking, surely we can be doing, I'm not saying him, Dave, before everyone in the chat goes mad. I'm not saying Carlos Sola, but surely there's some deals to be had to add a bit of experience and depth into this squad. And look, on Postecoglou and Lang's head be it, right? This is what they're saying they need to go forward. If we get injuries, we're going to pay. And I just really hope that for our sakes, those injuries don't come like they did last year.
Well, you know what? Everyone goes on about an injury crisis, but it happens every single season at Tottenham. You know, I think that's just something we're going to have to factor in when we're building our squad for the season. Injuries are going to happen. We're never going to get a perfect season without injuries. You know, so you should be building your squad in anticipation. You will suffer suspensions, injuries, want to make rotations. And look, it'd be interesting. Let's see whether we're left short. I wonder how many people are sitting there screaming for Paratici to come back in now, after a lot of people didn't like the business. At least he brought in players that we knew and had a bit of experience for the vast majority of it. So I wonder how many people are screaming for him back. Big up, Eddie. Really appreciate this. Go ahead.
If he did, Dave, listen, again, I'm not overawed by Paratici. I'm not overawed by Lang. But if Paratici was here now, you know, we would have had Chiesa. We would have had
for 12.5 million, of course we would have.
You know, Locatelli, that sort of player. As I said, it's all well and good buying kids. It's all well and good. But I think, as Paul O'Keefe summed it up, I think you buy the kids and you go, right, there's the 3 or 4 kids. Here's the 3 or 4 first team players. And then you've got the perfect balance. We've gone so far to the youth route that it's tough for competitions. It's going to be really tough. So again, I ask, what do fans expect their club to be or be aiming towards? Because you called it, Chelsea are a very unknown quantity, right? Yeah. But they have got the quality. Yeah. So they've signed loads of kids, but they've then gone out and got João Felix, Pedro Neto. Looks like they're adding Sancho, who's experienced. They still could get an Ivan Toney. So they're going youth and experience. Man United bought Yoro and Xerxes, then went and bought Agati, De Ligt, and Mazraoui as experience. Arsenal, Arsenal the same. Mikel Merino's got loads of experience, whereas Calafiori's a bit on the younger side. You know, Man City, Savio's a 20-year-old kid. Gundogan is a 33, 34-year-old experience. Yeah. I just feel that we're the only club that it feels like we've not done this bit. We've done this bit, but not this bit. And I really hope it doesn't come back to bite us on the arse. Yeah. I really do. But it's Tottenham. We'll never know.
No, look, I'm the complete same. You know, I've expressed my concerns about the signings that we've made when I've done my Welcome to Tottenham videos. You know, it hasn't gone down pretty well. People saying, Dave, you're being harsh, give them time, this, that, and the other. But, you know, I think it might carry us, you know, towards, you know, having a good campaign for the large part. But when it comes up with the big games towards the end of the season, the pressure environment, even in the Europa League and in a cup game, you're going to come up against a big team. And that's where I think that difference will really come back to haunt Tottenham. I think that's where that difference will tell, especially if we come up against United. You know, players, their signings could be the ones to make that difference if we come up against them in the semi-final compared to what we've got. And look, I agree with you. I've said it all summer long. I do worry about, in terms of the caliber of the players we're bringing in. I thought this window, I'm okay with us signing young players, but ideally you want them young players on the periphery of your squad, you know, pushing everybody. But what we've done is we've neglected it in terms of bringing in experience to really help that first 11 push on and become the best it can be. And then that automatically relegates some of the players in that 11 to backup roles, which we know they would be good enough to be able to do and stuff like that. So
why is it when you say it, you're loved? If I say it, I'm told to go and support other clubs. Look, I've got nothing against youth players. And you know, I've got nothing against it at all. I just think you've got to add the quality. And look, the Q word is something that I mention all the time, and I always say the Q word.
Carabag.
Yeah, Carabag. Right. It's all well and good for people to just constantly talk about a youth route and a process. That's brilliant. No one's ever won anything without the Q to go with it. You've got to have quality. And I'm not, Dave, you know me, we've talked loads. We talk away from YouTube as well. I don't expect Spurs to be challenging for a title now. So when people say, oh, Sava wants world-class players to challenge, I don't, not at all. I just want to see that, like Jamie Redknapp said, at least try. At least try and do something. And I'm all for it, right? If people want these kids and kids only, I'm all for it. It's up to them how they want to support the club. But the thing is then, when we don't win anything or don't challenge, I don't think that they can really complain that the club isn't winning, because this is what they wanted, right? So
see, the way I see it is, I don't think people wanted the youngsters. I think people have seen the route we're going down and trying to get behind it, which I think are two different things.
Sure. Yeah, sure. But Dave, at the beginning of the window, as I said, if this window was offered to any Spurs fan, I don't care how diehard people think they are, no one is looking at this window and saying at the beginning, yeah, we want that. And the biggest test for anything, Dave, I'll ask you this. If Aston Villa had signed these players, if Newcastle had, if Liverpool had, Chelsea, Arsenal, not one of us would be sitting there going, God, they've had a good window. We wouldn't, because in isolation, we signed some good youth. Yeah. And we all hope, like we do with every young player, we all hope that they all become brilliant. But you know what, Dave? For all of the people that want to call me toxic, tell me to support another club, right? That I'm not a fan, even though I've been going for 40 years, Dave. Traveling the world, 40 years. I've been at FA. I was at the FA Cup final the last time I won the FA Cup final, right? All of those people that want to say that about me is fine. But you have to ask yourself this. If this youth route was going to work, why are we still here 24 years after these owners have come in with no success under our belts? No manager has made a youth route work. No director of football has made a youth route work, right? No one has today. But now we think this time's different. I can't see it. So again, 5th, 6th, 7th, sure, I can see us getting all of that. I can see us being anywhere between 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, if we have a disaster with loads of injuries. I can see that. And that's not a disaster. It's not a drama. It's not the end of the world. But surely, Dave, we want to look up. And when you look up, ask yourself, how did the other clubs get to that level? And it wasn't through buying kids alone. So I need somebody to give me some proof. Yeah. I need somebody to come on, and rather than just tell me I'm toxic, I can take the abuse. Rather than telling me I'm toxic, rather than telling me that my wife's a whore and I should go and die and all of this stuff, I need somebody to come on and tell me, Sava, we're doing this because if you actually look at what X, Y, and Z done, this is how they actually evolved to get there. But what's going to happen, Dave, and this is the terrible thing, is when this doesn't work in terms of where Ange wants us to be, winning things, when another manager gets disappointed and you start seeing it on their face and starts giving those press conferences like Jose did, like Conte did, and then people go, oh, but the manager wasn't backed. Just remember this, because these will be the same fans now that are saying they really like what's going on. We can't have it both ways. He's either been backed or he hasn't. If he's been backed, and sorry for the monologue, if he's been backed, Dave, then the failure, if it comes, is on him. So is the success for balance. It's on him. If it doesn't work, it's on him. But what we can't do is get to another point where we turn around and say, and we turn around and go, because people are saying this is a great route to go down. So, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know what fans want. If this is what they want, I don't know what they want for Tottenham. That's the only thing I don't get.
No, look, I understand what you're saying. For me, look, I think the youth recruitment, I think in terms of what we've signed in terms of youth recruitment, I think we've signed some really good players with really good potential that could really come on and be good players for Tottenham Hotspur if they continue to develop. However, and this is a point I keep making, you know, if people refer back to United in the class of 91 or 92, whatever it's called, you listen to any of them speak, they all speak about the senior pros, the great leaders they had in the dressing room to drag them forward. You look at Arsenal, it started off with them going to the academy and bringing players through. But since then, in transfer windows, they've added some experience. They've added some players that can come in and help drag them along and add to it. And I think that's where we have neglected this window. And I think that's something we could have done a lot more in this window. And I do think come the end of the campaign, come the summer, we'll look back on it and go, if only we went after last window with a little more conviction. I do understand that point. However, I don't blame the fans for this, because at the end of the day, I think many fans came into this window. Most fans does want to see the luxury players come in, the big names. I blame the board for this. You know, fans at the end of the day, some will just get behind the team, get behind the project and stuff like that. And I don't blame them, because at the end of the day, that's what Tottenham was brought in for them to get behind. Well, I blame the board. Postecoglou made it very clear all last season in how many press conferences, even pulling journalists out going, I'm sick of talking about trying to make top four. I want a title challenge. I want to go and win trophies. The board should have went after this window with a lot more conviction. Great. It's all well and good saying, oh, you know, because I know some people go, but Dave, that's what Ange wants. Look, I was on your channel last week, Sava. We went through the signings, which I thought was a good exercise. I don't think a lot of them are Postecoglou signings. And I think the difference is Postecoglou will come out and say, yeah, you know, Solanke was his sign. I know he came out and really backed that one. But usually Postecoglou, it's like, you know, I've got on the phone and that. And for me, I think the club will bring players to him and he'll get on the phone and see if they're coming for the right reasons or not. And I think that's a little bit different to him actually having the pick of all the players he wants. He would have went and said, these are my positions that I need. Ideally, these are the players I like. And the club would have said, well, we've played so much into putting this scouting department together. We're going to put the attributes in that you need, see what the computer draws up, and we'll sign based off of that. And then after that, you can have your phone call with the couple of players and decide which one you want to bring in here. So for me, I do blame the board for this transfer. And I've made it no secret all summer. I was on Last Word and Third, Spurs, Chris Cowell, I've been on yours, you know, and I've aired my thoughts on this transfer window. I do think we've missed a trick, and I do think it'll come back to bite us. I think initially we'll get off to a good start, maybe like we did last season. I think we might push it a little bit longer than what we did. But when the pressure environment comes on, we've seen it with that Arsenal team. It's a different expectation. It's a different pressure. And I think that's ultimately where it's going to come back to haunt us. This season could be a very good one in large in terms of getting behind good football, scoring some goals and stuff. But I think when it really comes to the crunch, I think that's where we might be let down again. And that for me, I think will be a little bit disappointing. Because and I also fear how long is Postecoglou going to sit here and be messed around with a squad that's not going to be able to meet what his expectations are as well. So I do fear about that. Just quickly, we take a couple of these super chats and we'll get back to you, Saba. Got a super sticker from Ellie. Big up, Ellie. Really appreciate the support. Hopefully you're keeping well. I think she's just giving it the big fist up. She's absolutely loving being back in Europe. Dark Sun G says, Ange, former Celtic, goes to Rangers, who he will beat. Look, he absolutely destroyed them with his Celtic team a lot of the times, even at Ibrox with, because I don't know, many people don't know this, but in them away, in them derby games, you're not allowed away fans. So if when Celtic travel to Rangers, you're not allowed to bring fans. And when Rangers travel to Celtic, they don't bring fans. They've been banned. That's how hostile that derby can be. I know they're trying to change that for some of the derbies later on this year, but Ange Postecoglou is no stranger to the Rangers game, and it's never going to be as hostile as it was when he went there with Celtic. So he should be fine in terms of that, and he knows the pressure. He's handled it before. We'll go up there and destroy them. I'm not even worried about them, to be brutally honest. They're in an absolute turmoil up there. Shem Thompson's Galatasaray to turn on Davison Sanchez. Can't wait. Hopefully he plays. Watch him slip and slide all over the spot. Hopefully Solanke or Sonny, someone like that, can take advantage of it. Shem Tam. And, he'd probably get booed the other way. Let's see if he can play instead. I didn't like Spurs fans booing him for shit performances. I mean, what do you want us to do? Pat you on the back? I mean, it's ridiculous. And then we've got We Are Spurs TV. Not We Are Tottenham. We Are Spurs TV. Says Sava, Project Youth is a myth.
Yeah, I don't disagree with him. Listen, at the risk of being pelted, I feel like what we've done is, instead of buying proper first-team players, we bought a lot of kids, and then everyone talks about a youth project. I think if it was a youth project, you'd actually see the kids play. So, for example, if this weekend, like as I said to you this last week, Dave, if it's a youth project, get rid of Davis, don't bring Werner in, and play the youth. Do you know what I mean? Let's keep Ashley Phillips. If it is a youth project, keep Ashley Phillips, keep Donnelly, and stop buying players like bringing in people like Timo Werner. But look, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much game time the kids actually get at any point. So far, we've not seen the kids in the squad for one reason or another. There's lots of noise that Alfie Divine is unhappy at Tottenham because he hasn't seen any minutes in the last few years that when he was promised when he joined the club. Jamie Donnelly's gone out to Leyton Orient. Ashley Phillips has left. Valise has left on loan. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not the kids are ready, whether or not he's going to play them. Dave, we'll see. We'll see. But from what I've seen of this manager so far, I think the only youth that will get a game will be the players we sign, not the players that are coming through the ranks.
No, fair. Look, I would say it is not a youth project, but if you look since Paratici's arrival, we've dramatically lowered the average age of the squad that we once had. Bergvall and Gray, I do think you'll see them get more minutes as the season goes on. Mikey Moore and Lancashire, if they're kept around, I think you might see come October, November, December, January, when we've 4 competitions, injuries, suspensions. I think that's when you will see these guys, start coming to the fore, the likes of a Mikey Moore, the likes of a Lancashire. I don't think Postecoglou is going to sit here and rush them in now, but I do think when the time comes, unlike last year, he didn't turn to them. Some could argue he didn't know what to expect, maybe why. But after seeing them this preseason, there's no excuse for him not to turn some of these guys and be able to give them their minutes. Let's wait and see what happens. Now, I know with Jamie Donnelly, if people go back and look at some of his words that he said since his loan move, I think basically he was told by the club, you'd have to sit here and be patient, when we can't guarantee you a lot of football. So he's basically said, look, I want to get out. I want to play senior football. I want to get into the men's game. And a fair play to the kid looking after his career. I know Tyrese Hall is itching to get out of the club today on loan as well. He doesn't want to be playing under 21s. I don't think he really wants to wait too long for his opportunity as well. He believes he should be out there playing. He's good enough. Fair play to him. So I do think it's a bit confusing because I'm almost starting to think maybe the club have lied to some of these youngsters to a degree. And what I mean by that is they've offered them all long-term contracts. They're all tied down for the next 4 to 5 years. They ain't going anywhere, which is a huge plus. But, I don't think because I know they were told that they were clearing out the squad, to get these guys to sign the new contracts. They were told they're clearing out the squad and they're looking to put a pathway for them going forward at Tottenham. That's why these signed on the dotted line compared to other players in years gone by who have looked and walked away. And I just feel like that maybe this season they feel like maybe they've been a little bit lied to, that pathway hasn't quite been created like they were told it was originally going to be created. But let's wait and see what happens. There's still some players knocking around the under-21s that you might see being brought up. Josh Keely's another one you might see leave on loan today. I know Gunter signed a new long-term contract. He's starting ahead of him in the under-21s, and I think they're trying to find a loan move for Keely as well. But
Dave, one of the key things with the youth as well, it's again, I'll keep saying this, I'm an evidence person, I'm a fact person. I think lots of people can keep shouting as loud as they want that these kids are brilliant, that they're all going to break through and that the club loves them. Everyone lost their minds over preseason games where these kids got 30 minutes at the end of second halves against poor teams. That's fine. But Dave, as long as I can remember being a Spurs fan, we've always had this to varying degrees. This window, Troy Parrott went 3 years ago. Everyone was waxing lyrical that Troy Parrott's going to be the next Harry Kane. Dane Scarlett, it's never worked for Dane Scarlett. We heard the same for him, right? Santiago a couple of years back was talked about. This boy's going to be special, right? Alfie Divine was talked about. This boy's going to be special. And I'm not saying they will or they won't, but the thing is, at some point, it's got to manifest itself. At some point, it actually has to happen rather than talk. And Alfie Divine, a lot of the talk from people that are saying they know him, from his family, and that is that he's been at the club for a fair few years now. He's 20, is he, Alfie Divine?
Yeah, he's only 20. Yeah.
20, and sort of saying, hang on, I'm not getting any minutes. And that's fine. But the fans seem to think it's something different than it is. At the end of the day, not many come through. Not many, I don't mean at Spurs, not many come through in the world of youth football. A Kobe Mainu, for example, they're few and far between. A Phil Foden. As of yet, Spurs in the last decade, since Harry Kane, we haven't produced that player. And at the moment, all of the expectation appears to be on Mikey Moore's shoulders. It looks like he's the main one. But at some point, if you don't play them, what will happen is they'll all get tied up to 4 or 5 year contracts. But let's be brutally honest, Dave. That's so that in a year's time, when they've had a year in the Championship in League One, when a Blackburn comes in for them, instead of us going, oh, God, their contract's running out, we go, well, he's got a 5 year contract. Let's get 10, 15 million for him. That's what Man City do. That's what Chelsea do. That's what Arsenal do. They get these kids, but they actually give them minutes. Yeah. Look at Nketiah. Not good enough, but he got games, now sold. Reece Nelson will go the same way, right? Chelsea, how many in the last 5-10 years have Chelsea bought through, given them 10, 15, 20 first team games, sell for 30, 35 million? That's what I think Spurs are doing with the youth, rather than everyone getting carried away thinking that they're all going to come into our first 11 and be world class. I think there's a huge difference to what youth is for versus the expectations of fan bases.
No, look, I completely hear you on that. Look, what I would say is we do have some of the best academy players we have had coming through in quite some time. And like you said, a decade. And look, I've said this before. If the club don't get 2 or 3 of these guys through, considering there's about 7 or 8 of them knocking around, there needs to be an inquest on what's going on with this youth stuff. And they should just shut down the academy at that point, to be brutally honest with you. I do want to see them get a couple through. And look, there is a degree of truth to what you're saying. I do think, they wouldn't hand some of these guys the contracts to hand them if they didn't think they had that potential. But also, you're right, it is a fail-safe. If it doesn't work out and the club do mishandle their development, like they've done with so many promising players down the years, then it's a fail-safe where they can say, look, give us 10, 15 million, you can have them. So I agree. I do agree to a certain extent with that. We've got this from Dark Sun G, says, I disagree because nowadays buying experienced players could make a toxic environment. Sure, we lack experience, but hungry youths will go further, in my opinion. Look, what I will say to Dark Sun G's point is we have had, and I used to hear it all the time, Dave, these players can't be as bad as you say they're all experienced internationals, this, that, and the other. And I do get what you're saying about, we did have a massive toxic environment back then under a lot of these players. And I do agree what you're saying. I also do agree when you've got some younger players in and around the squad. It should keep players around them honest because they're so hungry, they're so desperate to make it. It should, in essence, the whole idea of it is to have them come into training, up the levels in training, up the levels of other people around and stuff like that. However, like I said, Dark Sunji, you do need some really good experienced players in the dressing room to be able to pull these guys forward. You listen to a lot of the class of 91, 92, they speak about the likes of Paul Ince, Robbo, players like that, good solid professionals that when the times got tough, they could turn to in games to get them over the line, in their personal life off the pitch, in terms of what to do to be better on the football pitch, how to live your life as a footballer. These are all things these guys learn off people like that in the dressing room. And that I do think is what could come back to haunt us come the end of the season. And like I said, I do think, we needed some improvements to the first 11. Look, I'm excited by the likes of Graham Bergvall. I do think they're going to be good players. I just think we could have added one or two bit more of experience to just help pull them along. And I think you get what I mean on that one, Dark Sun G, despite disagreeing.
That comment, again, this comes back to, it's very subjective. So when he's saying I disagree nowadays, buying experienced players could make a toxic environment. I mean, every other club out there is buying experienced players. So there's no real basis for that. I don't see any problems at Man City. I don't see any problems at Arsenal. I don't see any problems at Liverpool. These clubs are buying experienced footballers. So I don't really see that means anything.
They also do have youngsters in and around the squad, though, help them push it forward.
Yeah, Dave, I'm not doubting that. But the thing is, they're not just buying youngsters. That's the point. Look at Liverpool. How experienced is Andy Robertson, Virgil van Dijk, Alexis McAllister? How experienced is Mo Salah? How experienced are these footballers now at Liverpool? Alisson in goal. The second half of this is, but the hungry youths will go further. What does that mean? Further than what? And it comes back to what I said, Dave. What is it you want from Spurs? By the way, I can't caveat this enough, Dave. I've got nothing against youth. I would love to see Mikey Moore get a run this season on the right wing. I would love to see that. What I'm saying is you have to have a balance, right?
Yeah.
And what we can't do, I'll sit and say, what we can't do is we can't bang on that we love this youth now. If it doesn't work out, if we slip further down the league, if results don't go our way, we can't then turn around and go, well, it's a young squad. Yeah, it's a young squad by design. It's not a young squad because, this has just happened. This is a young squad by design. And unfortunately, listen, I used to work for a Premier League football club and I did a lot of work with the academy teams. And the academy players, you speak to them on a daily basis. They are in awe, Dave, of the senior pros at the football club. Right?
Yep.
They're in awe of the senior players. They look up to them. How do they eat? How do they train? How do they keep fit? So all of this, just buying hungry young players, they've got to have that next layer to learn from. So I think it's a real mixture. Dave, listen, I don't mind if you want to kick me off. I can see a lot of people.
Not at all. What I'd say to people, like I said, I echoed earlier on, Sav is my guest today, and I ask you to be respectful. Look, I have no problem with people disagreeing with him, and you know that I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. But there's a way to do it. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Life is tough enough. Let's show each other a little bit of respect. If you disagree with what Sav has to say, keep it on the football. Same with me. Let's not get it personal. But I think what maybe, Sav is trying to get across is when you look at our dressing room now, we've got Son, Vicario, Romero, Madison, and you would probably put Bentancur in there as our experienced players, right? I don't include Werner despite his age because he's just non-existent. But apart from that, you do have a lot of youngsters in around the squad. Sarr, Gray, Bergvall. Look, Johnson's 22. He's not a kid, but he acts like a kid and his mannerisms are of a kid. So I'm going to throw him in there. You've got Udebur. You've got Van de Ven, who's still only 22. You've got Edozie, who's still only 21. We do have a lot of youngsters. And to your point, you do need some more experienced players to help drag them forward, help bring them on. But to Dark Sun G's point, hopefully, and I think the point that he's trying to get across here is you won't see us take that early exit out the FA Cup or the League Cup or hopefully Europe. You will hopefully see the youngsters, because they're in and around the squad, when they come in, hopefully we'll be able to sustain it longer than what we have done. Now, I get your point. You know, there's a difference between going further and winning the thing. 100%, I get it. But I think that's the point that maybe Dark Sung G is trying to get across there. He also says, as much as Timo seems like a disappointment, he has Champions League trophy, unlike our players, so he does have European experience, which is helpful. Dark Sung G, you know my opinions on Timo Werner. I don't think he's good enough. I think he's very wasteful. He hasn't done anything to come in from last January to the end of the season to alleviate my concerns of his end product. I don't know why we've signed him again. He did get a Champions League. I do get what you're saying, but I think that was more to do with a lot of the players around him than him personally. Look, you would like to think maybe he has a bit of experience he can offer some of these big players going into the big games. He's been at the top level for some time. He's experienced these big games. Maybe there are little things behind the scenes that he can help them deal with the atmosphere and stuff like that. But if I'm a youngster, I do not want any sort of footballing advice off the guy in terms of how to control the ball, how to shoot, what movements to make, because he doesn't make the right ones. But in terms of off the field experience, yeah, I see what you mean. He might be able to offer them a little bit something, but can't be naive to know when some of these youngsters come in, he's going to be your experienced player on the wing playing in some of these games. Is he going to be good enough to be able to drag these guys forward, which you need in some of these guys in these games, set the example, set the tone for us moving forward from the first minute forward? I'm not quite so sure, because he's a player in his prime, still trying to find his confidence, still trying to find his form. And that's where I'm a little bit concerned about Timo Werner. However, if you were to talk about Son, no problem at all. You know, he does have the experience in and around the big games to help some of these youngsters and stuff like that. Vicario, he's another one. You seen him let Bergvall know the other day. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I think he's absolutely right to do it. These players have to learn, and they have to learn very, very quickly on the job. So I do get what you're saying. I just think maybe Timo time is maybe the wrong person to use for that point, Dark Sun G. But I do get the point you're trying to make, my man. And look, you shouldn't be surprised, because you know my opinions on Timo Werner, Dark Sun G. But then he also says, Sava, how can youths develop under dinosaur managers like Jose and Conte? They don't like youth, so the project youth couldn't happen before Ange. And look, Sava, I do think he has a fair point. You know, there was a lot of rumours under, especially Conte, that he would call some of the under-21s up on game day just to go and be a cone, in the 11v11, the shadow work that they do on the Fridays.
Sure. But let's have a look at some facts. Again, facts and feelings are two very, very different things. If you look at any of the managers in the last 5 years, Jose actually played more of the kids than anybody else, right? Jose was the one that brought through Japhet Tanganga. Jose was the one that was playing Skip. Jose was the one that started giving some of these kids a go in the FA Cup games. So this actually isn't true. If you look, again, facts and feelings, I can't tell you, as much as people will hate a fact, you can hate it, but it's not my fact, it's a fact. This youth project that you're saying couldn't happen before Ange. Last year, Ange did nothing for the youth. We had injuries galore at the back, and none of our young defenders got a sniff of first-team football. So when we're saying the youth project couldn't happen before Ange, what's he done now with it? If he wants a youth project, why is Ben Davies there, not a younger defender? Right? Ben Davies is there. Ashley Phillips has gone on loan. Right? If he wants a youth project, why sign Timo Werner on loan? Why not just play Odebear there all season or Mikey Moore there all season? We can talk about a youth project, sure. But when push comes to the shove, when the starting 11 is there and the 9 subs, how many of these youth project players are actually there? That's not my opinion. That's a fact. And you know, you look at the first 2 games of the season, Mikey Moore's nowhere to be seen. Will Lancashire was nowhere to be seen. Hall was nowhere to be seen. Ashley Phillips has gone. So, again, I don't think this is quite true. And most of the players in Ange's lineup are 26, 27, 28. If you look at Madison, Bentancur, Son, Werner, Romero, Vicario, none of these people are young. Like, I'm not saying they're old, Dave. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're all 30 odd, but So we have to be really careful here when we just say things like this that aren't actually true, because Jose did more with the youngsters than anyone else, if we're going to be brutally honest.
Look, I hear what you're saying. I do think last season, Postecoglou, was about him working out the squad, who he can trust. And you look at a lot of the players that he turned to in the times of hardship, most of them are not here anymore. Skip, Højbjerg, Emerson, people like that, they're gone. So the next one's off the rank is your Grays, is your Lucas Bergvals, Mikey Moore to a degree, Will Lancashire when the time comes around. And like I said, you've also got Van de Ven, you've got Doja, you've got Udebear. So we do have, I would think, look, I'm only taking a guess. I haven't gone through the squad fully, but I think it's a bit of 50-50 that you do have some of the older players that you're talking about and some of the younger players. However, this youth project, this is Paratici's. This is what Paratici brought to Tottenham. It was when he first came here, he purposely set about lowering the average age of the squad. He's the one that opened up Daniel Levy's eyes to the academy, to the possibilities of it, the money that it can make him or the players that it can produce. He's the one that, have signed some of the youngsters for the academies that they've brought in over the last few years. So, and I think under Jose and Conte, I think basically what Levy was trying to do there is bring in two really experienced managers to try and pull the last dregs out of that Pochettino squad that we have.
I agree.
I think any other manager, like you see with Ange, as soon as he's walked in, he goes, no, look, they're done. Get them gone. He won't work with them. So I do think we are kicking into a new era under Ange Postecoglou, that we don't really have a lot of the dregs of that around. And I do think this year he probably will turn to some of the youngsters in the times of toughness.
When you say young,
I do believe this.
Are you referring, Dave, to the youngsters he signed or the youngsters from the youth team? Two different things.
I think you'll get two from the youth team. I think Will Lancashire, will be kept around. I don't think they fully trust Richarlison, and the fact that he's barely played, I think they're waiting for the Saudi window to close just so he doesn't carry an injury or that, see if they can get an offer for him. But also, his availability over the last 2 years. So I think Lancashire is going to be kept around with a view that he probably will get game time. So I think we'll see him at some point. Right now, he's currently injured after scoring a banger against Bristol Rovers. Mikey Moore, I do believe you will see get game time at some point this season. And Bergvall and Archie Gray as well. I think they're the four that you can pin your hopes on and say, we'll see them get game time this season. The likes of Will Lancashire and Mikey Moore, the thing is, I get it, right? People want them to be rushed into the squad this weekend. But there's no need to. There's going to be a time and a place for it to happen. They're going to get their game time.
Dave, I agree.
Wait there and be patient.
Dave, I agree. And this is what I've been saying all summer. When people are losing their mind after friendlies of 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, that it is going to take time. I kind of feel like we're in the middle of a youth thing and an older thing. I don't really know what we are. I think that's my biggest issue with Spurs at the moment. Is I don't really know what we are. I don't know where we're trying to get to. And this window hasn't really given any indication that there's any ambition. And that's the difficult thing for me. So, look, at the end of the day, we'll see. If I'm wrong at the end of the season, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. But at the end of the day, at some point, it needs to stop being all this talk of youth, all this talk of projects. At some point, the club need to go out there and go, let's bring in a couple of really good footballers that help the first 11 right now. And at the moment, we're not seeing that. And if you look at every signing under Johan Lang, right, I'll ask you, if you look at what Lang has done since he joined in October, November time, can anyone tell me what is he doing? What is the plan if you're looking at Lang signings?
Well, when you look at Lang signings, look, I've said it all along. I think he was here to shop in the homegrown market. That's why I sat there and giggled to most of the rumours linked to players across Europe. Because, look, I was very on it earlier on. I looked at the squad, and it's something I've been banging on about for years. The homegrown side really needed to be improved. I knew they were going to address that this window, that they weren't really going to the foreign market. I looked at the squad a couple of days ago. When you look at what we've got, even if you get rid of Reguilon and Lo Celso, when the Premier League registration, we're absolutely fine. When it comes to the European registration, the criteria is a little bit different, which means we're actually at the max right now with what we currently have, minus Fraser Forrester, who should be left out of the squad. Lo Celso should be going today, and Reguilon as well. So there's not actually much room for Tottenham to do any business to bring any more in right now. But when it comes to Johan Lang, he was brought in here to work in that homegrown market. When you look at Aston Villa, you've done a very good job for them in the homegrown market. But when it came to the European recruitment, it was a little bit off.
Yeah,
and that's why they brought in that guy from Sevilla, Munchi, to really boost that side of the squad. So that's what Lang is here to do. I feel sorry for him to a degree, but I do expect him to do a much better job than maybe what he has done so far in terms of where Paratici brought this club, from 8th back to 5th, relatively a new squad compared to what we have had in years gone by. He done a good job. But in order to do from 5th to 1st, it was always going to be a lot tougher on Johan Lang coming in here to bridge that gap, because almost every signing you make has to be absolutely spot on to bridge that gap. And I think after this summer, I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on Johan Lang.
There has to be, because listen, I'm not even saying first. When I don't use the word first when talking about Tottenham. The difficult thing is if you are going to try and close that gap, and I say from 5th to 3rd, right? If you're going to try and close that gap to Liverpool, who are the worst of the top 3, and I don't mean worse in a negative way, because Liverpool are a very good club, then you've got to start bringing in quality players to try and close that gap. The problem is, as we said, it's that we haven't done any of that. If we had signed 3 really top players that go into that first 11, and we had signed Odegaard, Gray and Bergvall, I go, yes, that's how you do it. But we haven't. As I said, we've neglected the quality part. And Dave, you've supported Spurs long enough. I've supported them long enough. How many times do Tottenham get to that level where you think, right, if we had a few now, we can really kick on? And this is why I always find it funny when I'm considered negative. All I've ever wanted is to be better and win things. And that apparently as a fan is seen as a bad trait. But to get to that level, we keep getting to that level and stopping. We got there with Poch and then didn't buy anyone for 3 windows or 2 windows. And it's like,
do you feel like we've done that this window?
Absolutely. This window's the exact same. It's great. We can talk about, by the way, I'm not saying Bergvall and Gray won't have good games, but you've got to buy some quality. That if you want to, you can't just go youth. You've got to buy some quality at the same time. And I think we've missed a trick. Man United have strengthened. Chelsea have strengthened. Villa are still going to be there. So it's going to be even harder than last year to get 5th. I'm not saying we can't get it. I don't think we will. I'm not saying we can't. But I've got us still penciled in that 5th, 6th, 7th spot, because I just don't think we've done enough, Dave, to turn around and worry any of the other clubs that are above us. I just don't. Sorry. Look, I just don't.
Look, I agree. I think, have we done enough to catch City, Arsenal, Liverpool? I'm not quite so sure. With Liverpool, I'm hoping there's going to be some sort of rough period with the new manager and stuff like that. But it looks like they're starting off okay underneath him. But look, when it comes to the market, I do agree. We should have brought in that little bit more experience to really help push them on. And we, look, I think we've sort of, like you're right. When we have been in and around and so close, even them years under Pochettino, did Daniel Levy really go after any of them summers with really any conviction to add to it to really help push us on and get over the line? He didn't. And it does seem like any time we're in and around the cusp of top 4, he does pull back. And look, I think he's done that this window personally. I don't think he's committed anywhere near the funds he could have, or even spent the funds as well as he could have in terms of this summer. And I almost feel like we're relying on Postecoglou's managerial abilities to be able to get the best out of everybody and pull this across the line rather than actually help him in the transfer market. And look, like I said before, I think the club are waiting for Pep Guardiola to leave and hoping that some of the youngster players that we've got will be developed and primed and ready to go by then.
When you say that, what does that mean? Because even when Pep Guardiola leaves Man City, look at Man City's squad, right? Even when he leaves, look at Arsenal's squad. Even when he leaves, look at Liverpool's squad. Look, surely we run our club for us. And look, as I said, I posted something this morning. It was a Jamie Redknapp clip. I don't know if you've seen it doing the rounds.
Yeah. I've seen it last night.
I ask anybody sensible, not people who just want to abuse, ask anybody sensible, watch that Jamie Redknapp clip and debate it. How can anyone look? Jamie Redknapp said time and time again, you look at other clubs and they're bringing in quality to try. He's not saying they're all going to win, but to try. And Tottenham are the only ones that never try. And
what I mean by having a squad, building a squad to catch City when Guardiola leaves is, look, I expect Guardiola to leave either at the end of this season or, at the end of next season. Things come to their cycle no matter how well you're doing. But when he leaves, you will have other players that have been underneath him, that will leave after him. You'll have players that will be getting on in age, and there will be a bit of a rotation in terms of Man City. Same with Arsenal. If Arteta was to leave, a new manager will come in with his own ideas and want to bring in some of his own players to create the core of this dressing room. And what I mean by building a squad for that eventuality is, the reason why they brought Bergvall and Gray now is because in 2-3 years' time, they think they're going to excel to be really good players. So that when Pep Guardiola does leave, they should become more established players, and they can then help us push on to try and create that gap, to try and beat Man City. Because if they were to commit the funds this summer properly to be able to catch Guardiola, they would have outlaid funds for Ugarte. They would have outlaid funds for one of the centre-backs that have gone across, coming into the Premier League this summer. They would have outlaid money on Chiesa or a better winger than what we have done. And that's what I mean. But I think they're building a squad. You look at Udebert, again, a player that I think they're hoping will come to fruition in 2 years' time and almost develop that squad into a title challenging squad, rather than actually commit the funds and bring the experience now to go and challenge, which they could have done. And that's what I mean by that.
Dave, let me address the obvious elephant in the room. Whenever I hear that as an argument of these players will all come through in 2-3 years, that's not how football works. That's not how football's ever worked. Because what
we done under Pochettino, though, Sav, it can work like that. Harry Kane was brought through, and he look at the squad that we ended up developing under Pochettino with these youngsters. After a couple of seasons, they came good and got themselves into a title race, got themselves to a Champions League final, got to Carabao Cup finals, FA Cup semi-finals.
Sure, Dave. Sure. But 7 of the 11 were already there, right? So of the players that Poch had, 7 of the 11 of that famous 11 that didn't win anything were there.
But they weren't a part of the previous regimes. A lot of them were sent out on loan. Walker and Rose were sent out on loan for quite some time.
Yeah, but Dave, that's not my point. The point is that team didn't win anything, right? At the time when we had to kick on with that team, again, Daniel Levy didn't kick on. And Daniel Levy is still here. This is what I think everyone just forgets. It's like, well, what we're going to do next summer. And Dave, this is what we do. We have these bad windows, and then we start looking to, but next summer we'll do this. The summer after we'll do that. Yeah. Next summer will be exactly the same. It will be underwhelming. It will be Daniel Levy trying to balance books as always, because that's what he cares about. 24 years has shown us that. My point to this, Dave, was if you look at, when I said this isn't what teams do, Spurs have done this before, where we've taken a young player, we've brought them through for 2 to 3 years, and we say, you know what, in 2 to 3 years, when all of these youngsters are brilliant together, we're going to challenge. But let's have a look at what happens to these youngsters on that journey. Let's just say, I don't know, let's say there's 5 youngsters on that journey. I don't know, 4 or 5 journey, right? One of those youngsters is going to be brilliant. One of those youngsters is going to be a Harry Kane type, a Gareth Bale type, a Michael Carrick, that ilk, right? That player will be sold, right? That player will be sold.
I'm banking on they won't be this time around, because when Levy built the stadium, he did say it was so we could keep hold of our best players.
Sure, but Dave, we've already seen how that's not worked. Harry Kane having 4 years in that stadium. Yeah. Those players, listen, here's the difference. People won't want to hear this, right? Here's the difference. You can tell fans to have as much patience as you want. 3 years, 4 years, Sava, 4 years, Dave, the project. Players don't have the same patience. Players, I'll use Bergvall as an example. Bergvall could be absolutely brilliant, and let's hope he is. Let's say in 3 years, he's absolutely brilliant. He turns into this world-class midfielder we all want him to be. Real Madrid comes sniffing. Bayern Munich comes sniffing. Man City comes sniffing. And you know what? In that time, Spurs haven't added the quality around these kids to actually go on and win something. So these kids turn around and go, I'm off. And we can say we don't want it to happen this time. Kane, Carrick, Bale, Modric, Berbatov, Keane even left at one point. Carl Walker, right? Time and time again, these players will have enough of not actually going to win things and they will get bought. And that's the natural food chain of football. So this dream that we're going to bring through all these players and in 3 or 4 years, they're all going to be brilliant and we're going to challenge. By then, Romero would have gone. Right? Romero will have a big Van der Ven. These clubs will come in and circle for clubs like us that don't take it seriously and don't win. That's the problem of constantly having youth only. If you're not buying for now, Dave, and this isn't
I agree.
This isn't my feelings. This is 24 years of facts and evidence that this is what will happen with those players if we don't bring in players for now. So call me negative, call me this, call me toxic, but this has been on repetition for 24 years. Look, and still we think this time is different.
Look, I agree with you on terms of what you're saying, that we do need to bring experienced players in to help this go forward. 100% I agree with you. But I'm just saying, this is what I think the club's plan is, going forward, that they're hoping, these players will come through, and when Guardiola leaves, they can put them into a title challenge. Now, if that does happen, it's then back to the board. What are you going to do to help these players get over the line? And I agree with you. If they don't, when you hear the likes of Van der Ven, only at 22, already talking about wanting to win trophies this year, Romero has alluded to it. How long are you going to hold on to these guys for if you don't get there? But I do think the plan is to hold on to them for the next 2 to 3 years and build it. And then over the next couple of seasons, we should see progress and get us there. But whether we get over the line or not is a complete different story. So I do understand what you're saying.
So sure. Can I ask one thing? When I ask people that have the opposing view, and it's okay to have the opposing view, notice how I'm not calling anyone any names. I'm just talking. My question is this: what's the end date on any of these projects? Because Dave, we talk about project after project after project. Can someone give me an end date of when one of these projects actually has to bear fruition? And I'm not talking about winning a League Cup. I'm talking about getting Spurs to a place where we are consistently in that top 3, right? I need somebody to give me a time frame, because otherwise, you know what happens, Dave? What will happen is people will just say, people will literally just say, it's a project though. It's a 5-year project, 6-year project. People could just make up a time frame. It's been 24 years. It's been 24 years. At some stage, right? The chairman told us we moved to the stadium to compete. Then the chairman has windows like this, and we go, yeah, but it's good for a project. But that's not why we move stadiums. That's not why the fans pay the highest ticket prices in world football. So what's the end date where we turn around and go, yeah, this is good. This is quality.
Do you know what?
No one can tell me.
I hear you on that, right? But for me, the club got into such a mess under the Steve Hitchen recruitment. I washed my hands with it at one point and says, right, I have to give the club, not even the club, but I have to give, at least when Paratici arrived, I said, look, I've got to give someone a chance inside the club to try and put us back on the right chance, to try and build up, put us back on the right path to where us fans want to go. And I think many fans need to do that at some point and go, look, okay, we're not happy with a lot of what's gone on in the past, but at some point, you've got to give someone within the club a chance to build it. Because look, when Paratici came here, despite his recruitment, I think a lot of it being really good, many people started calling him a con as soon as he arrived here. Didn't give him a chance to really build it. As soon as Postecoglou came in, I know this is a name that you, Sav, I know you've given him a chance and you've judged him on what you've seen. But as soon as he arrived, people are like, this guy's a nobody. Who the fuck is he? This, that, and the other. As soon as players come in, because we're so desperate for trophies now, we don't give them a chance to be able to, get back to where we need. And when you've had piss poor recruitment like we did under Steve Hitchen, who wasted 350 million of the club's coffers, Daniel Levy's fault, because he should never have left him in the job so long and spend that amount of money.
Sure.
But at some point, you have to understand, I think Sava will be back. I think he will be back. I think he pressed the wrong button, to be brutally honest. Yeah, here he is.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
You get what I mean, though. At some point, you have to give people coming into this club a chance to try and get it back going in the right foot, if you get what I mean.
Listen, Dave, I hear you, but the problem is when we're talking about giving people a chance, whether it's the manager, the director of football, the scouts, the recruitment, the owner, summer transfer windows is when you see what the club has planned. And as per Paul O'Keefe's tweet, which I really agree with, the club had a year. We've had a whole year to plan this window. And that's the best they could come up with. That's truly worrying. And that's nothing against the kids. I can't sit here and say it enough times. I hope all of these kids turn to be absolutely brilliant, right? But the problem is, if that is what they've spent a whole year planning, that worries me, Dave. When we're saying give people a chance, Ange and his team behind him, they've had £400 million now. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think, oh my God, 400 million, we should be in a title race. No, that's not what I'm saying. But when you say we've had £400 million, our backup defenders are Jed Spence and Ben Davis, right? 3 of our 5 midfielders are all 21 and under. So there's a real lack of experience gone if Bentancur and Basuma don't play. And Bentancur's got injury issues and Basuma's got consistency issues. We've still got the likes of Brennan Johnson and kids playing on the wing. With £400 million, Dave, if I'm going to look and say the project, the process, the rebuild, whatever buzzword people want to use, I'm expecting a lot better than the 400 million they've spent.
Look, 100%, I get what you're saying, but it sort of comes back to what you were saying earlier on, right? What do they want for this club? Are they willing to accept a bit of a rebuild, which doesn't mean trophies this season, or do they want trophies this season? And I think it comes back to that. Look, I get we want trophies. I want trophies too. I want the memories my dad has, the memories that he speaks to me about. I want them. But, it comes down to whether you're behind what Tottenham are trying to do here, because Paratici did say it very early on in one of his meetings. He was coming in here. He was lowering the average age of the squad. He was going to rebuild it with some of the best youngsters across Europe. And it's just whether people want to believe in that route and go down it, or whether they don't. And I get what you're saying about the age of some of the midfielders and stuff like that. But for me, I think in terms of youth recruitment, I think we've got it pretty much right, to be brutally honest with you. Don't get me wrong. I still believe we do need that bit of experience to help really push it along. But
don't you think, Dave, we're acting like we are Fulham or Brentford? Look, again, we can, when you say there, when you say there about,
but I think they're going down the route, especially Daniel Levy. I think he's going down the route of what served him well in years gone by. And what I mean by that is, under Martin Jol, we were signing the likes of Eric Edmond, people like that, who people didn't really know too much about, young players who brought us from not being in Europe to inside Europe. When we had Harry Redknapp, now this is the ideal squad. He had a lot of experience, but he also had some really good youngsters in around there. That was ideal. But under Pochettino as well, he had the likes of Adebayor, Sigurdsson, a lot of older heads like that. Lewis Holtby, he was very quick to get rid of them. Bring in some of the academy players, bring in some of the good youth recruitment that we had made in years gone by, that were being found out on loan, brought them in, used them, and also sprinkled it with a couple of, experienced players like a Dembele, like a Wanyama from the Premier League to come in and help really sort of kick it on. And I think that's what the club are resorting to, basically, to be brutally honest with you. We're
the 6th, we're the 6th, 7th richest club in the world, Dave. We moved to £1 billion stadium, and this is how they act. This is what I think a lot of people forget in these conversations, right? All I'm asking for is what was promised.
Yeah, right? I get you.
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
I was pissed off on this Harry Kane. It wasn't what was promised.
Yeah, sure, but I get it, right? Harry Kane, I understood them selling Harry Kane because it got to the point where they hadn't backed him, and we were literally like, well, it's either nothing next year or 100 million now. Now, how we spend that money, that's a completely different debate, right, Dave? But I get it, right? My problem with all of this is we are talking, like somebody in the chat said, get over the fact we left White Hart Lane. Well, hang on. Sure. But when we left, what was promised to us wasn't this, Dave. When we left White Hart Lane, we were promised, the chairman actually turned around and said, it's game changing. What we're doing right now is what we've always done, buying young players, right? Game changing stadium. It's going to allow us to compete. When the owner doesn't do that, or the manager doesn't do that, we just turn around and say things like, oh, don't worry, get over it that we've left. Oh, but that's in the past. Well, we moved to the stadium to compete. We are the seventh richest club in world football. And again, look at that window and tell me that anybody would have been happy with that window at the beginning of the summer.
The thing is,
look at that window and tell me that that isn't what Brentford would do.
No, look, I don't disagree with you. I do not disagree with you in that regard whatsoever. When you look at the position the club are in financially and stuff like that, you know, they always look for the excuses not to spend, financial fair play, PSR, whatever it is. And then when them windows come about for us to take advantage, we never do. I completely get what you're saying. But, you know, I'm just saying that's the project of the club. And a lot of people don't buy into it. It's now up to, you know, the squad, the management, you know, Daniel Levy to try and get people to buy into it. And the only way they're going to buy into it is if we start producing results. And the reason why we think they switch back to lowering the average age of the squad and stuff like that is because, you know, it's what's worked well for Daniel Levy in years gone by. You know, when we've had a lot of these older players, the dregs of the Pochettino squad, and he brought in Jose and Conte to try and, you know, get every last ounce out of them. You know, he was losing money left, right, and centre because he wasn't getting any money in for player sales because the players that we had to sell were here far too long and stagnant and stuff. So going back down this youth model, it's sort of ensures if it doesn't work out, they can still sell them on and stuff like that. So he's just resorting back to what he's done in years gone by. Luka Modric we brought in as a youngster, absolutely brilliant. Gareth Bale brought in as a kid, absolutely brilliant. Aaron Lennon, Danny Rose pulled in from the Leeds Academy when they were youngsters. Kyle Walker pulled in from the Sheffield United Academy when they were youngsters from Tottenham Hotspur and stuff. You know, and he's just resorting back to what helped Tottenham in the years gone by and helped eventually propel us into competing for trophies. That's what we've done.
But isn't it the definition of insanity, Dave? That even when we did well with that, and by the way, when we did well with that, City weren't what they are now. Liverpool aren't what they were now. So the definition of insanity, as we all know, is doing the same thing, expecting different results. This is what I don't understand. And this is why I'm not telling any other fan. I don't tell you, listen, when you and I talk football, I never tell you, Dave, you have to think this, right? We just have a chat. You think how you want. Everyone in the chat can think how they want. But when people are telling me, I have to think like this and you have to support someone else. Well, hang on. I've seen Spurs win European competitions. I've seen Spurs win FA Cups. I've seen Spurs buy top players. Now I'm not seeing any of those things as a Spurs fan. And I think if you speak to a lot of the older fans, they'll tell you that, hang on, what are we doing here? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that Spurs are going to get relegated. I've made that really clear on this show, I think. That I think we're going to finish 7th. But for me, if you said Spurs are going to be anywhere between 5th and 7th, I'm not going to argue it. I think it's well within the possibility we finish anywhere in there, right? Can we have cup runs? Sure, we can. But the problem is this. If we are just going to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, because that's what got Daniel Levy relative success, we can't hope for different results. And the problem is, we can talk about 3 years down the line, Dave. If we talk about 2027, by that time, they would have owned this football club for 27 years.
I get it.
And this is where at some point, when you're saying it's whether people choose to like the new process or not, I don't see a new process. What I see is the same old process, lots of young players that we're hoping will come really good, and eventually they will be sold. They will. When Romero leaves this football club, everyone can't sit there and go, oh, why is he leaving? Well, we're not buying players around him. You're not buying players around Van der Ven. You're buying kids, and footballers have a very short shelf life, right? We all know that, Dave. Yeah. Romero's what, nearly 27, or his next birthday is 27? He's going to turn around and go, hang on, I'm a World Cup winner, right? I'm a World Cup winner. This club, oh, hang on. Okay, he's really good, but he's 18. He's really good. He's 19. He's 20. They're going to look around the dressing room and go, what are we doing here? Publicly, they'll say they love it. Publicly, they're all the PR is, we want to win leagues. Sure. but they're not. And those players will inevitably leave. Those players will leave. And unfortunately, I don't know what the process is that I'm meant to be getting. Just get behind Spurs. I don't know what I'm meant to be getting behind. Nothing's changed.
This is where I think we maybe see things a little bit differently. Look, I think eventually they'll probably be sold, but I think it will be the likes of what we done with the likes of Harry Kane, Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld. We won't sell these guys until they're about 30. Daniel Levy will make it virtually impossible. And that's in essence what he done with Toby. Jan, he let Kane go at the very sort of last hurdle. And I think he's going to try and do the same here. Like I said, look, I think he's just resorting back to, what he done under Pochettino, where, even if it's not Ange Postecoglou that delivers it, but under Pochettino, some of them signings that he had to work with, or some of the players he had to work with, were signed before him, where many people question the recruitment, but they came good under him. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here, with what we're trying to do here. Whether
they may want that,
it or not. Huh?
They may want that, but okay, take your Spurs hat off, not literally. Take your Spurs hat off. Real Madrid next summer, come in and go and start talking to, by the way, they wouldn't wait till the summer. Real Madrid, for example, start talking to Christian Romero's agent, right? You're telling me that Christian Romero's not going to do everything he can to get out of this club and go and play for Real Madrid?
Look, he might.
You know it's going to happen.
Look, many people would have said the same with Toby and Jan every time there was rumours about them, but we never sold.
Sure, but did you see any bids come in for Toby and Jan? I don't remember any concrete offers going in for them. Look, Dave, I'm going by facts and evidence, right? The players leave. They will if we don't win things, right?
No, I agree.
Now more than ever. Listen, Dave, I promised you, and by the way, this isn't an abusive comment. There's one comment I just have to refute because it's just a bare lie, if that's okay, right?
Yeah.
This Tom guy says this same clown, I think he's talking about this good-looking fella here, this same clown was shitting on Van der Ven when he was signed. Can I just say, Dave, you can ask my wife if you want. I watch every bloody league in the world that I can, right? Sometimes when I get into bed, if I can't sleep, I'm watching Argentinian games and Brazilian games. This clown was one of the YouTubers last year going, I really like Van der Ven. That's a top signing. Nowhere did I say I don't want Mickey Van der Ven. So when these sort of things are peddled around the internet, that's really, really not true. By the way, I've not said I don't want any of these youngsters. That I feel like people are missing that. I've not said I don't want any of these youngsters. What I'm saying is bring in players around them. Bring in players around them. That's all I've said.
Yeah, no, and look, I think many people would agree with you. You go across many YouTube channels, I think it's many people's concerns, that we need that more experience to be able to drag this forward. And I don't think you're on your own in terms of that whatsoever. We'll take these couple of super chats, and then I do actually have to do my members live preview, I think 2 or half 2. So we will do these super chats, and then we will call it an afternoon, because I know, Savvy, you're going live at 3, aren't you, with your your transfer deadline day stream. So, people, make sure you get over and follow that. Mark says, that's IrishHotspur. That's a straw man, Dave. No, look, I get what he's saying, because he's on about, what is he saying? Where is it? He said something about Romero or something like that. I can't remember, but I will say it was only 6-7 months ago. A lot of people were saying he wasn't good enough, or he's not this great centre back, and now we're worried about him going to Real Madrid. So, I would say, Mark, to be fair, we can sit here and worry about Romero going to Real Madrid, but it was only 6 months ago people were questioning whether he's even good enough to be centre back for Tottenham Hotspur. So, I think there has to be a bit of fairness. Like, what I don't want is people to say 6 months ago he was useless, and then sit here now and go, we're worried about him going to Real Madrid. He can't be both, right? He can't be useless and then get moved to Real Madrid.
But Dave, I think that's the difference here. This is what football fans do. There's a difference between when people question how good is Romero versus is he good enough for Spurs. So for me, I've always been one where I've said I don't think Romero's world class. I think he's got a lot of things he needs to add to his game. Does that mean I don't think he's one of our better players? Of course not. Of course he's one of our better players, because I don't think we've bought brilliantly. So the key thing for me here is, if you are going to build a team around Van der Ven and Romero, build a team around Van der Ven and Romero. But what you can't do is say, right, we've got Van der Ven and Romero in place. That's our centre-back partnership. Now we're going to put kids in front of them. Sure. So then when those two centre-backs go, it's right. Who replaces Van der Ven and Romero? Look, there's nothing wrong with Spurs. We are what we are. But I just don't. I refuse to see that anything's changed.
That's fair.
And look, again, we'll see when we get to the end of the season. Dave, you must admit this as well. Look at the pelters I got for saying this type of stuff last season. And at the end of the season, it went how many of us thought it was going to go. But because it wasn't the positive way, because I wasn't talking about title challenges, it was perceived as negative. Listen, I'm more than happy to hold my hand up. I'm more than happy to hold my hands up. If Spurs ever finally get it right, I will.
Look, at the end of the day, the way I see it, we're only Spurs fans. We choose to put ourselves out here. We're not mythical figures and stuff like that, you know. And at the end of the day, we all have our opinions. And I think we should show a lot more respect to each other. At the end of the day, every other club, every other fan base shows Spurs no respect whatsoever. And when we don't show each other respect, it makes it easier for them to do that. If we start showing each other a little bit of respect, at the end of the day, it's only people's opinions. You know, it's how they see football and stuff like that. I think the world would be a better place. And it's okay to agree to disagree. You know, you're not going to agree on everything. You don't need to make everyone see your point either. You know, everyone just put your point out there and see where it lands. You know what I mean? Have discussions on it and stuff like that.
Do you know what, Dave? Do you know what I would really love in the world of YouTube? And do you know what? It's what 90% of YouTube viewers get. And they're brilliant at it, right? And to be fair, my mates will tell me, and people like you will tell me, we had a deep chat the other night, I'm guilty of not paying enough attention to the nice people. I am, completely. What I don't get is, I would just love for, if somebody goes, oh, well, Sava thinks we're going to finish 7th, rather than you're toxic, you're negative, go and support City, why not say, actually, Sava, I think we are going to finish 4th, and the reason is X, Y, Z. Then I come back to them and go, okay, interesting, you've said that. I don't actually think X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? Like you and I have this conversation, Dave. Yeah. But the automatic answer from the really immature fans is, oh, you're negative, go support City. I mean, I've been a Spurs fan for longer than most of those people. I was taken to Spurs when I was 2-3 years old, standing on the terraces at White Hart Lane watching Spurs win a European trophy. Now, do I remember it brilliantly? No. But I remember being there. I remember being trampled. I remember beer falling on me. I remember the outside the ground, right? And I've supported Spurs since then. But to have so many, it's not me. By the way, this is anybody that disagrees with people's opinions is you're not Spurs. Yeah, you're not Spurs. Support Man City. Why would I support Man City? Why? Why would I? What? Because I acknowledge that they're brilliant. It means I support them. It's a funny old world, this YouTube, mate. It really is funny. And most of the comments, they would never come up to you and say it in a pub or a bar face to face. They never would, Dave, because when you go to the pub, Dave, right, and you're debating with somebody you've just met, if you're like me, you get into football, right? We're men. Nowhere does anyone turn around and go, God, you're such a toxic prick because you disagree with them. Do they? No one does that. It's absolutely mad.
But what I will say is, I've said this to you before. Stop giving them airtime.
Yeah, I know.
Deal with the people that, even if people disagree with you in terms of football, deal with them. People that are coming in, putting in comments about football, deal with them, rather than deal with the stupid comments like that. Because for me, I've always said, there's no basis to them. You're not telling me what you disagree with. You're just having a pop at me, and there's nothing, it's not productive or anything like that, And look, that's why I think, just focus on the people that are in your chat there for the football and stuff like that. And, because if you're a troll, right, and someone gives you, if you're a person, right, you put in 10 good comments and they're not brought up, you put in 1 troll comment, it's brought up. All that's doing is giving you learned behavior.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So,
sure.
Look, that's why I say to every YouTuber out there.
I just wish people will grow up. And I'll tell you why it gets to me more than other people is, when you're getting death threats.
You get it more than other people, to be fair.
Yeah, listen, when you're getting death threats, when your wife's being called a whore, when, when you've got people talking about your personal life, it does get just a bit too much. But listen, I'm all for it. And I invite anyone onto my channel. I'm live today between 3 p.m. and 11 p.m. All of these people that I'm more than happy, come in, say to me, Savvy, when you said this about the youth or that, I disagree. Sure, cool. Let's have that chat then. That's all it is. So, but look, Dave, I do need to go. I have got a meeting at 2:00. Really enjoyed it. Love having football chat with you, man. We don't agree on everything, but I always enjoy it.
And by the way, guys, look out for Sava. I do one thing a week on his channel where we do a pre-recording. We share our thoughts on certain things and stuff. So make sure you look out for that. A lot of people, when I look at the comments, a lot of them seem to really enjoy that show and stuff like that. And, I will have Sav on here again next week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll do a breakdown of the window. We'll go more into detail about the individual signings and stuff like that. But guys, please get over there, check out his channel, smash the subscribe button on it. And when we're not live, get over there and check him out. Sava, I really appreciate your time because I knew you were busy today and that. So thank you very much for giving up your time for an hour, lad. I appreciate it. 2 hours, actually. I appreciate it, lad.
No worries. Sorry, I think a few people are saying that you've missed some super chats, just so you know. But
I'll get onto them before
I need to jump. Listen, thank you to all the sensible people in the chat. I'm live at 3. And good time. See you later, Dave. Take care, mate.
Yeah, look, your fingers crossed, might get something done, Sam. You never know.
You do know. Later, mate.
It's not going to happen. Bye. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Everybody, that's Sava. Absolutely really enjoyed having him on. And thank you to the vast majority who have been respectful throughout the chat. I really do appreciate that. We got Dark Sun G says, what if the youths have a game 2-3 days before the senior game? They're so exhausted to play, so it's pointless to bring them to the bench. We have many games, unlike last season, because we lost to Fulham and City in the Cup. And look, this is where I do think, with a bit of patience, with a bit of time, naturally these youngsters will come in and play games. Look, I do think it's a good hybrid to play them between the under-21s when they're not being used for the senior team if they're eligible, just to keep them fit, just to keep them sharp, keep the minutes in their legs and stuff like that. I do think that is the way to go forward. But what we don't need to do is just rush them in straight away. That's where I maybe differ. It's like when we do suffer the injuries, when we do suffer the suspensions and stuff like that, then it's time to bring them in. What we don't. Ideally, I would like to see Werner not on the bench and bring Mikey Moore on the bench, something like that. I would like to see that. But there's no rush. It will happen. It's going to happen and evolve naturally, Dark Sun G. That's what I would say to that, my man. Especially like you said, when the cup games come around, I think, Europa League, especially like Carabao games like that, I think is where you will see some of these youngsters, fill out the squad and get some game time. Dark Sun G, really appreciate the support, brother. And sorry it took me so long to get to it, lad. Future's bright. Future's Lily White member for 2 months. Imagine we lose the next 2 games. Hope we smash them. Look, next 2 games are absolutely huge. And I know a lot of people maybe disagree with me in the comments saying that it's too early to call them season defining. But a loss to Newcastle away, a loss to the North London Derby will have a knock-on effect going forward. It's going to take you a little while to recover. Also, when you look at the words coming out of the players and the management, it's talking about title challenges, talking about winning trophies. The way City are right now, you can't afford to drop many points. You can't go, it's okay to drop points here. It's grand. We'll make them up further in the season. It doesn't work like that. If you want to get into a title challenge, which is Postecoglou's words, you have to be consistent. These are the games you have to pick results up in. If you beat a Newcastle, if you beat an Arsenal, all of a sudden, many people are sitting there going, hang on, could Tottenham? Now, obviously, we know somewhere along the line, it will derail. But it asks the question, if you lose to Newcastle and Arsenal, or you don't pick up as many points as you're expecting out of them, all of a sudden it goes from a title challenge to a top 4 race. And that's why I think it's season defining, because you've also got Brentford after. Very tricky games over the last couple of years for us. Man United, blow hot and cold as well. Tricky enough games for us. So this next 4 games is a very crucial point for Tottenham in our season, very early on. Of course, I didn't want it to be like this. I would have rather a couple more fixtures like a Fulham, a Palace, play teams like that. But this is the way the cookie crumbles. And we have to be ready. If we're talking about winning trophies, you beat Newcastle. You take a point at least from the North London Derby and kick on. And that's where I'm at with it. Future's bright. Future's Lily White. Big yourself up, my man. We've also got this from Dark Sung G. The difference between Liverpool, Arsenal, and City is they had at least 5 seasons under the same manager. This is the first time we had a manager for a season, and 100%. And that's maybe a point we should have discussed that I didn't think of right there and then. To be brutally honest with you, is look at Arteta. He didn't just propel them into a title race. He finished 8th, and 5th, and then got them there. Guardiola, a little bit different. First season didn't win the title, but with the right investment, it really kicked them on. Liverpool under Klopp. It did take them a couple of years to get there. And I think you make an absolute great point. And this is where, maybe to my point that I was saying is, at some point you've got to show one project a little bit of patience to try and see the fruition. Now, I do get what Sav is saying in terms of the end goal. We want to win trophies, and 100% I get it. But when you look at some of the other managers that have been, like the likes of Klopp at Liverpool, the likes of Arteta at Arsenal, in order to catch Man City, you have to give the manager time to build it. What they didn't do to get there is fire a manager after every season the minute they didn't deliver a trophy. And we can't get into that. And that's why I say with some of these younger players, combined with some of the experienced players, this is the project. And I am willing to give it a chance. I've seen progress last year from no European football to finishing in European football. And hopefully I see progress again this year. That's what I want to see. Even if we don't win something, I want to see this progress. If it doesn't progress, then there has to be different questions asked. But I've always maintained this for quite some time. Even under Jose, even under Conte, I've been consistent. You want to get back to the heights we were at Pochettino and even better, you have to give somebody a chance in the club to try and bring this about. It's not going to happen overnight, especially with the owners we've got. They're not going to drop, like they did for Guardiola that time, 120 million on fullbacks alone, just to help him go on and deliver what he needs to do. The club ain't going to do that. So it does require giving somebody in and around the club an opportunity to be able to build it. Dark Sun G, absolutely spot on. And then we've also got cases, Sarah, Doji, Van de Ven, Dragson, all came class in 1 year. And look, hopefully we can be out. Sarah's a little bit different. He did have a loan out and stuff, but hopefully they can kick on. And that's what we're ultimately relying on. Well, I do agree with Sava. We didn't hit this window as best as we could have. We didn't bring in some of the experienced players that we really needed to kick it on. So we are relying on the likes of a Doji to become better. Van de Ven to get out there and play a lot more games than what he did last year and become even better. Dragson, when he steps in, be ready. Papa Matsar to kick his game on to a new level. That has to happen if we want Postecoglou's title challenge to come true, because we didn't do enough this transfer window. So we're relying on everybody else to be better than what they were last year. And Woodsy TV says, no, Richie or Dom now. And it begins. What a window. Well, look, to be honest with you, I was never expecting Dominic Solanke to be fit for this game, because I know Postecoglou said in the pre-match press conference before Everton that we're more so he's hoping to get him back for the Arsenal game. But not ideal not having Dominic Solanke there or Richarlison. I think it's going to cause us a bit of a problem, to be brutally honest with you. And what I mean by that is, against Newcastle, especially up their place the last 2 years, they've pressed us nice and high, and they've got really aggressive with us. And especially under Postecoglou last year, we're trying to play out through that. And then at times when it wasn't working for Vicario, the only option he had was to go long. But anytime he went long, he had Son, Werner, and Johnson to hit. Now, neither of their games is specialist in being able to get the ball, take it in, especially a long ball coming up like that when you're up against a 6-foot guy behind you and you're not the tallest yourself. Hard to get that ball, take it in, hold it up, and get your team up the pitch to relieve a bit of pressure, which is what you need across that forward line. So be interested to see what Postecoglou does in terms of that. I think the only other option you have, I do think he'll go with Son up front, Udebert off the left, Johnson off the right, just like he did against Everton. However, this is where I think Postecoglou needs to be a little bit more clever. Take yourself back to last year. You didn't have that out ball when you had players of that size and stature up in the forward line. And Eddie Howe's just going to get Newcastle to do the same again for the opening 15, 20 minutes. I would start Kulusevski up top just for that out ball, just so you can get a hold of it and relieve pressure. If we can stay in the game the first 15, 20 minutes, we will take something out of Newcastle. Where we've crumbled the last few years has been earlier on in the game. I think for the first 15, 20 minutes, they pelted us last year. What were they? 2 or 3-0 up? I remember saying to Jack, it's happening again. In the year gone by before that, we were 5-0 down after 21 minutes. We haven't dealt with the intensity Newcastle have thrown at us nice and early. So that's why I think it'd be important to start Kulusevski give that out ball to relieve that pressure earlier on. Because the longer the game goes on, we'll be fine. Like last year, I think Newcastle finished the game with 27% possession, but bet us 4-0. And that's all because of the early work they'd done. And then they just sat off, defended up, locked up, shot. So that's why I do think he needs to change that forward line and go with Kulusevski for that out ball just to survive the first 15, 20 minutes. After that, do what you want. But please, I urge, just get Kulusevski up front for the first 15 to 20 minutes, Woodsy. But when it comes to Richarlison, I think, look, I've said this many times, I think the club are holding out, waiting until the Saudi window is closed. And if he hasn't got a move by then you'll start seeing him reappear and stuff like that, to be honest with you, Woodsy. But big yourself up, my man. Really appreciate the support. But guys, that is it. We do have a lot of content coming your way, of course, covering everything that's happened today. That's the Europa League draw. We have the members preview for the Newcastle game coming up live shortly. Then we also have, we're doing the under-21 watch-along tonight at 7. And then later on tonight, then we'll be back for the last hour or so of the window. Got some good graphics made up, going through, the signings and stuff like that. So plenty of content coming your way today. Amongst all that, I have to try and get my predicted lineup recorded because it took them so long to get the interview with Ange Postecoglou and that for Saturday. But look, guys, in terms of the Europa League draw, which is what we were here for today, I'm very happy with the draw. And I think I don't think you'll find a Spurs fan that isn't happy with the draw. Roma at home, tough fixture, but it's fallen kindly. Rangers will smash. Alkmaar will beat. Ferencváros will beat. Karabag will beat. Elfsborg will beat. Hoffenheim and Galatasaray, the two maybe fixtures where it could get a little bit tricky. But we should be coming out inside the top 8 of this league. But peeps, thank you very much. Really do appreciate your support today. We'll be back here later on for the watch along at 7. Any members, get into the members preview show. That'll be coming up in just a spliffy. So guys, have a good afternoon. We're back in fucking Europe, baby. And long may it last, and hopefully we can get to Bilbao. See you all later on. Come on, you Spurs. In the mighty hands we trust. We never stop.